Okay, right. Well, without further ado, I will kick things off. So welcome everyone to the Asset Navigation with OpenText ECM webinar, brought to you today by Cad-Capture and Qellus. I shall talk you through a bit of background, and then we'll get on to introductions and kick things off. So originally, this webinar was called Asset Navigation with OpenText ECM, and it was going to go through a whole host of different points: unlock and access your engineering content, gain a single integrated view of all your assets, documents, and drawings, activate the asset tags in your drawings, improve quality, increase compliance, and automatically create and populate and update this asset information. That's still some of those points we're going to touch on, but really, as I've gone through a process of, I think, 6, possibly 7 different customer-facing events with our friends at Qellus this year, I felt that it would make much more sense, and the message would be far more digestible and relevant if we perhaps change the focus slightly off purely the asset navigation solution and really put it in the context of the bigger tool sets that it works alongside. So the subtitle of the session is Streamlined Use of SAP Plant Maintenance and Maximo Asset Management. Just whilst I'm doing this, I'm admitting people. Multitasking, I'm a man, this will never work. Maximo Asset Management with OpenText Content Suite and Documentum. And so this means that really the primary focus of the session today is really around the unlocking and access of your engineering content. And then with the help of my friends from Qellus, we're going to hopefully explain to you how that can be a launch pad for then allowing you to use that information in a whole host of different ways to good effect for your organizations and delivering significant value and benefits along the way. So with that in mind, today's presenters, firstly myself, Chris Clark, I'm the Sales Director of Cad-Capture, and then I've got 2 friends from Qellus. So Swati, would you like to just very quickly introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Swati Wagh. So I am a senior solution architect in OpenText products from Qellus. I usually work with all extended ECM products from OpenText family. Okay, Michael, next to you.
Okay, hi, good morning. Thanks for joining. Michael Payne with Qellus. I'm a senior principal. Primarily, I work with the extended products within the enterprise asset management space.
Thank you, Michael. And just seeing somebody else to admit, this multitasking is definitely not going to catch on. Right, so welcome, Swati and Michael. Thanks for joining us today. You're going to be seeing more of both of them later on. What I'll do now is to help things along. I will take us off video for now, and we'll come back onto video later on when we get to questions. And we shall proceed. So in terms of today's agenda, so we'll go through a very brief introduction, give a brief industry overview. I'll hand over to Michael to give a perspective from Qellus in terms of the enterprise asset management overview and how those systems can work in conjunction with OpenText and the Cad-Capture and the Qellus solutions. We'll go through a very brief asset navigation demonstration. More than happy to expand that with people where they think it's relevant, but really what I wanted to try and do was go around some of the beneficial areas outside of the tool set itself, hopefully to good effect, to help you understand more of the benefits we can bring holistically to other systems involved as well. Then I'll hand over to Swati. We'll go over some technical details of the xECM, which is the OpenText integration framework, and we'll go into more details on that. And then we'll go through a summary and take questions at the end. So with that in mind, my colleague Kim Walsh will be looking at the chats. So if you do have any questions, please could you save them to the end. We'll make sure there is time at the end for the questions. But if you'd like to put them in the chat, either put them in the general chat or send them to Kim directly, and then she'll collate those at the end. Okay, so, and how do we do for time already? Okay, so starting off, very quick overview of Cad-Capture. We're based in the UK, in the northwest of England, place called Blackburn. We've worked with OpenText for over 16 years now. We've specialized in engineering as long as we've been in existence, which is about 34 years now. Starting off in CAD conversion and large format scanning arena. But over the last 10 years, we've really focused primarily on helping people with software solutions. Once their drawings and data are digitized in terms of they've been captured electronically, how they can then take that data from the drawings themselves and how they can use the combined data and the documents more effectively. We're also, as you know, this is part of the solution extension or SolEx Expo. So all of the events that are in the Expo today are run by OpenText partners. Cad-Capture, no different than that. So the solution that we're talking through today is called Asset Navigation from Cad-Capture. There are also some additional solutions from Qellus. Cad-Capture are cloud certified and also a SolEx partner in our own right. Okay, so very quickly, in terms of the asset intensive industries that we focus on and we support, across the globe and across industry, we work with companies such as P66 for over 25 years in the oil and gas, and Valero, a refining company, Electricity Generating Authority in Thailand, or EGAT in Southern California Gas, SoCal Gas, and then places like mining, Barrick Gold are the clients of ours, just to give you some examples. And what we see across all of the organizations that we work with are that they are seeing challenges with siloed information, not being able to access the information documents quick enough. The time to data is therefore impacted, and access to critical documents is too slow, which can impact safety and compliance, and it means that general quality standards are difficult to meet and maintain. Now, we can help address all of these with our tool set, and we can also help from a wider perspective allow people to leverage existing investments in existing tool sets, and also get more user adoption of those same tool sets more widely because of the intuitive nature of the tool set that we have here. Okay, so very quick asset navigation overview, and then I'll hand over to Michael. Just to give you an idea of what we do, as I say, it's unlocking and capturing the data. So what Cad-Capture does with our asset navigation solution, we go through native AutoCAD files or searchable PDFs, so machine-generated PDFs or OCR PDFs. We capture the information, the tag information, any structured information on a drawing or a document we're able to capture. We extract it. We can then categorize it. We use pattern recognition, so nothing is done at the drawing level. All of this is centralized. And here you can see the different ways that we've designated or categorized the different information that we found. So continuation tags to instrumentation, equipment, and piping. Once that has been captured, we're also able to build a database, tag library. So you have the tags to drawing relationships, and we're also able to capture errors. Here you see an error in the drawing, and we capture it and correct it at the metadata level. We'll show you some more about that in the live demo later on. But that can be very powerful in its own right in terms of making sure people find the information that they need, and also when they're correlating it with other third-party systems and data sources. And the icing on the cake, the culmination of this solution is taking that asset library, those relationships, the granular view of the tags on the documents themselves, and activating them. So when you use the OpenText multi-format viewer, you're able to dynamically link to other documents and drawings within the repository, or you can also go to third-party systems such as SAP and IBM Maximo, and particularly if the xECM framework for OpenText is involved, and then get direct access to these systems. Okay, so that was a very quick overview of what Cad-Capture does in terms of the asset navigation solution. Now I'm going to hand over to Michael, but I'm going to keep control, so I'm his not so glamorous assistant for this part of the session. And so Michael, please take it away and tell me when to click.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So I want to give a little bit of an EAM overview, but really this is about an asset lifecycle and how Cad-Capture with asset navigation can aid you in various parts and phases of the entire asset lifecycle. You may or may not be using or want to use this during the entire lifecycle, but it's important to recognize that you could use it at any of these different phases and for different purposes. So that's really what you're going to see, and I'll introduce a few new terms around Documentum or OpenText and business workspaces and some things like that, which will be explained in more detail later. But right now, just conceptually, what I'm trying to do is just give people a decent overview of how you can use this tool in conjunction with other features around OpenText or extended ECM to make it a very powerful system for various departments within your firm. Okay, down one. A quick introduction to Qellus, or I'm sorry, yep. We are content management professionals. The average career of any of our consultants is over 20 years. So we're not like the new kids. We're like people who are very experienced. And it's around this entire concept of extending content management into various applications, leading applications. That might be Autodesk, Esri GIS systems, SAP, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, Office 365, and Maximo, etc. So that's what our specialty is. We are an SAP partner, we are an OpenText partner, and we are an IBM partner. We actually have built the extension that goes into IBM Maximo was actually built by Qellus. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to take you down this journey around the asset lifecycle. Let's down one. So generally, corporations have some kind of expansion plans, growth plans, capital CapEx projects each year. That starts off life as a portfolio or strategy. Some people use SAP PPM, which is the portfolio project management piece, but that's kind of where the idea of we're going to go buy or build something happens. Okay, that's the beginning of the asset lifecycle. Next, contracts are let, designs are done by usually a capital project team working within internally or with external vendors on EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction. There's a very important piece there that OpenText products do really well, which is the transmittal management. But what they're transmitting back and forth is information that is on an engineering drawing. That'll come in our discussion later. After design, there is procurement. Okay, so we get a bill of materials, we get a list of things to buy to support this project. Those may be services or equipment or buildings or whatever the case may be. Next. After procurement, there's usually some construction going on. So we're doing some master build, we're defining what's happening, and we're also doing as built versus design drawings changes, right? So there's a lot of activity from a drawing and asset navigation perspective in this phase right here. Next, we will commission and install. There's usually a lot of commissioning documentation and performance reviews and things like that to make sure what this corporation has purchased or built is meeting all the standards. There's a lot of permitting that's going on there. A lot of documents are generated here. And then a very critical next step is, one down please, is the operate and maintenance phase. So generally, especially for heavy industries, the operate and maintain phase may be 30 to 50 years, whereas this plant, the previous phases may only be a year or two. So that's a very important piece where most of the costs are associated. And that information handover, the ability to build out your EAM system, build out your EHS systems, possibly even real estate space management, is critically important to hand over as much information, quality information as possible. And that's where Cad-Capture asset navigation comes in, extremely important. And then a much kind of forgotten piece is decommissioning. If we have a lot of engineering drawings and we're using them for years or decades, when we change things or decommission items and replace with new and things like that, we need to also make sure that we can communicate those changes effectively to the engineering companies, the EPC companies, et cetera. So next arrow down. So asset navigation is handy, and Cad-Capture functionality is used in all of these asset lifecycle phases. And I'll show you a few examples of those. There's important features around when this Cad-Capture is done, a lot of people now are navigating to similar items or related items within an engineering drawing. The hotspots that Chris went through, the activation of those hotspots, and the ability to navigate across different drawings with continuation pages or within is an extremely important feature of Cad-Capture and asset navigation. This on the bottom half, you'll see, and the top half is what's called a Brava viewer to view some of that and make annotations and changes that can be communicated back to the engineering department internally or externally to EPC contractors. You notice this OpenText feature here in the bottom, it's called transmittal. So that's part of that engineering management space where if we have changes to the drawing and we need to communicate those back and forth, we can do that and bundle this package up and do workflows and things like that to make sure we don't drop the ball on anything. We're monitoring the transmittals back and forth to internal and external parties. You'll notice the reason I started with this asset lifecycle is these capabilities that you're seeing now with annotation, views, navigation, transmittals. Those are used during the initial design. Those are used whenever we do an as-built and we make changes as we're before we commission or during commissioning, and also during that decommissioning phase. Okay, next part we'll talk about is you saw that Cad-Capture and creates it creates a list. Okay, it extracts not just assets, but it extracts control systems, valves, gauges, etc., piping information, etc. That's a very, very useful feature, the ability to extract that data, because what people can do in different parts of the life cycle, they can use that list, for instance, during procurement. Okay, we want to be able to purchase these assets. Those have all been identified on the drawing along with the related spec sheets and that type of thing. Procurement can then use that to start making sure that we're purchasing the things under capital property so that we attach or we start the schedules upon installation of depreciation, etc. So that's really helpful to procurement to use that piece, and also spare parts. You also see in that commissioning, I described that circle, that EAM setup. That's hugely important. So this same extraction of data from those drawings can be used to upload and rapidly commission and update your EAM system. That could be Infor EAM, that could be, or Hexagon, I think it's called now. That could be in Maximo, that could be in SAP, PM, or EAM, whatever that's called now. So that's super useful to those folks, those maintenance folks, where they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can utilize that bill of material and asset list to build their functional locations and assets, and or help introduce things into their storeroom, okay, as new items in stock. So next piece is within the operation and maintenance phases. A lot of the life cycle is there. So Cad-Capture and asset navigation can be used from directly within the leading application, Maximo, Hexagon, SAP, PM. And we can automatically associate engineering drawings to the asset in the business workspace that is now internalized, and that's part of the extension or extended ECM within Maximo. So what you're seeing in this top left, you're seeing an asset record in Maximo, okay? And you're seeing these attachments and foldering that is called a business workspace that is really the core functionality of OpenText. But what you are seeing in those where it says engineering and maintenance, you see some little icons for engineering drawings, is those weren't people individually, the maintenance department, for instance, or planners, making those links over days and days and months of time. This is automatically ingested and can be continuously sustained by using some features of OpenText and Cad-Capture to make those linkages over time. Why is that important? Well, it's important to engineering planning and having access, your technicians, your facilities folks, to have access to the engineering drawings. But it's also important that if they get issued work orders, and that's what you're seeing in the middle red circle and arrow, is that we can transfer information, the content that you want, using OpenText, extended ECM for IBM Maximo and others, onto the work order. So we could bring the safety documents if we wanted to or not. We could bring one or all the engineering documents directly onto the work order. That could be used on a mobile device. That could be used on internally on just the work order and all kinds of things. Other things that are very commonly used here are permits, safety workflows around like confined space, hot work permits, things like that. And remember, as we showed you earlier, there's that Brava viewer. If an engineer or technician is out working on something, he identifies a problem, he can use that Brava viewer or navigate within the CAD drawings using Cad-Capture asset navigation and quickly communicate information that needs to be changed back to the engineering department, for instance. Okay, so that's where you're seeing here was this complementary set of information between the Cad-Capture and the extended ECM product lines is important throughout the life cycle. If you're in a brownfield situation and operate and maintain, it's still useful. If you can do more things upstream and even downstream, it starts compounding and really leveraging this technology for greater and greater gains at your company. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Just helps if I unmute myself. Right, so I shall take over now and just do it's almost like we planned this, Michael. We'll do a quick demonstration after giving you some positioning so you can see firsthand what Michael was talking about. So in terms of where the asset navigation solution fits in, so you have the base layer of the controlled document management system. So generally it would be OpenText Content Suite, OpenText Documentum, it could be xECM for engineering, it could be asset operations, the D2. All of these systems can be added to, and in conjunction with that, they could be using SAP plant maintenance and or Maximo asset management. So on top of that layer, you can then introduce the asset navigation, tag extraction and validation. And this can be useful at the EPC side of things when the handover comes forth, as Michael mentioned. So we can check the tags are where they should be and the format they should be as soon as the drawings are received, rather than on the critical path later on in the project. We can then create the database, and all of these solutions on the asset navigation side, from the database and the validation, are standalone. So these can be done in isolation, or they can be done in context of the larger framework and the additional systems. So really, we're giving a bottom-up view of the drawings. If the drawings are in a system such as OpenText, we can go and get the drawings from there, and we can harvest the tags, and then we can keep them updated. If they're in a different system, we can take them out, and we can do the same in terms of creation of the database. So you get those tags per drawing, drawings per tag relationships. But finally, once you have that structure, that asset tag library database, you can then take that and leverage it across the OpenText system firstly. So within the content managed environment, you can access related documents based on the information that is in the database from the hotspots. But also, and as importantly, if not more so, you can access the information and leverage the information in third-party systems. So you can really break down the barriers between structured and unstructured information, and you can consolidate that information in this central location, which is the business workspace. So very quickly, I know I'm overrunning, so I'll see if I can speed my part up a bit more. So hopefully you can still see my screen. Can I get a confirmation from someone? Is my screen still showing?
Yes, we can.
Great, thanks, Kim. Okay, so this is the OpenText Content Suite. Well, in this case, it's Content Suite, but it's the Smart User Interface, or UI. So what I'll very quickly do is do a search for a particular piece of equipment, the UH100G, and then it helps if I type properly. And I select that, and this will open up in the workspace that we mentioned before. So this shows you, as Michael mentioned, and you saw in the graphic earlier, these documents have been identified through the asset navigation solution, and that means that they're available in this environment. They're automatically attached, and here you see they're in conjunction with the information from the lead system. So we have, this is a very rich system. You've got a full Maximo and SAP implementation behind it. So we'll go back to here and we will open up a drawing. You'll see in the left-hand side the extra functionality from the Cad-Capture toolset. So this is the multi-format viewer from OpenText, and on the left-hand side you have the memory bar for the HotSpots, which is a component part of the asset navigation solution. So we can turn on all of the tags that have been harvested, and all the different colors represent the different types of equipment, as I mentioned earlier. And what you can also do is in the filter list here, you see there's 105 hotspots on this drawing. So for a P&ID like this, it can be useful just simply to be able to navigate around and find something that you're looking for in a very busy P&ID. Here we'll go straight to BUH100G, and I'll show you some of the additional functionality. So you can, because if you're carrying out a maintenance task, you probably want to find some related information, some documentation and drawings that are relevant if you're carrying out a task on this piece of equipment. So we can, on the right-click menu, which is configurable, you go to related documents, and then you get the same set of drawings that you saw earlier in the business workspace. So here you have the data sheet, a process flow, and the P&ID itself. So you can click on the data sheet, and that shows you information in the data sheet itself, in the viewer. And also, because there is a tag here and it's a PDF, we've been able to capture the tag, and so you're able to do the same here to right-click, and you could have started your journey here as easily as the drawing, and then navigate across to, okay, I've got the data sheet, show me the drawing that this tag exists on. And it takes you straight to the P&ID. Other very quick examples of how you can use the tool would be the ability to navigate from one document to another very quickly. So here I'll turn all the tags on. So if you're looking at this vessel and you wanted to walk the line, we're in drawing 4 here. If you wanted to walk the line and carry on, it goes to this continuation tag to drawing 5. Simply click on that and it automatically goes and opens up the required drawing, and it also gives you a highlighted path in as to where you've come from. So you're now on drawing 5, as you can see at the top, and it tells you that you've come from drawing 4. So if you need to retrace your steps, you can do that. If you wanted to carry on, you can just navigate up. I'll do this rather quickly because I know where it goes. Let's zoom out a bit. And here you've got 4 instances of the errors that I mentioned earlier. So you've got 4 tags, V-402A, B, and 401A and B. But here you see there's an underscore instead of a dash. This is the correct format. So this is what all of those 4 tags should look like. But what we've been able to do, because we can tolerate those mistakes and errors and inaccuracies, we can go in and we can say, okay, even though it says on the drawing V_401A, if I search on the corrected value, it still shows me that. So that means that you can very quickly and powerfully correct errors within a drawing without actually going into the drawing itself. And if you have errors like this that go across multiple or even hundreds of drawings, that in itself can save a whole host of time and make sure that everything is findable. Just give me a second, there's somebody just coming in. So what you can also do, or before I do that, I'll show you, there's a HotSpots history function. So this gives you a breadcrumb trail of all of the documents and drawings that you visited during the session. So this is great if you get to a break or perhaps end of shift, so you can save where you're up to, so you can start in the same place. But also you can share these across the wider enterprise. So for instance, you can create a work pack of the documents that are required for a maintenance task. And so if this task is then carried out periodically, the next person to do it, even if it isn't you, can click on the work pack that was used last time, and that gives them the latest version of all those drawings and documents. So that is a very good, empowering way for them to start off in terms of the documents that they require. That can save document controllers' times, or it can empower the engineers themselves to really put the information together themselves. And what you can also do, to go back to the business workspace, so if I'm looking at V401A now, this vessel, and I want to find out more information from the lead system, I can go to the business workspace, and that will take me back to a similar location to where we started. And this will again show you the documents that are related that you saw in the drawing before. But it'll also show you the information. So for the first time, you've got the ability to compare the information from the drawing with that in the lead system. So you've got this is a business workspace for that particular piece of equipment. And here's all the rated information. Now, Swati is going to talk you through this in more detail, but very quickly, before I hand over to her, I know I'm hugely over time, Swati, so apologies. I will show you 2 examples. What I haven't done is show you any of the PDF examples here. So just so you know that it isn't just restricted to native CAD files. Here you have a PDF that has been, I think this is machine generated, perhaps directly from AutoCAD. So when that's the case, and very often people don't want to socialize their native CAD files, even if they have them, you can get the same look and feel and ability to use the hotspots in this type of environment. And what you can also do, if we scroll down and zoom in here, again, you can use the continuation tags, navigate as you would the native CAD files. And finally, here's an example of a drawing that I think to lots of people who are familiar with particularly maintenance and operations and documents that have been around for a long time will be familiar to them. Something that's been printed out multiple times. It may even be hand drawn. So at least some, if not all, of the information on there is not electronically available. You know, you can't actually get it via OCR. You can't extract it. So what we also have is the ability to take these drawings with you. You don't have to redraw them because you can actually draw on the additional hotspots where you need them. So these legacy drawings, which generally if they've been around for a long time, they're important. You can still utilize them in the same manner that we showed you with the drawings. Okay, so a bit of a whistle-stop tour. So I hope that came through okay and was clear. Now we're going to pass over to Swati.
Yes, thank you, Chris. I will share my screen first and then we'll start. Can you confirm you can see my screen and hear me okay?
I can and I can.
All right, thank you. So we will pick up where Chris left on the workspace for BUH 100G. What I wanted to mention before we talk about the workspace more is, I'm sure most of you have heard of this or know more about it, but for those who has not heard this concept before, I'll just briefly go over what is a business workspace, right? Like you have heard it from Michael, from Chris, and you'll hear from me as well. So a workspace is like a digital replica or a digital object for your real world object. So in this case, we are using an asset or equipment workspace to represent that digitally, but it could be anything. It could be your vendor, customer, work order, purchase order, invoice, any of the object which has a data or teams or tasks associated with it could be in workspace. So in this example, I'm going to talk about the asset workspace a little bit more. It consists of 4 important, I would say, pillars. So one is obviously data, like what makes this asset an asset, right? So we have the data which provides that context. Now the data could be coming from your leading system, manually entered, coming from your homegrown system. It doesn't matter from where it is coming from, but this workspace kind of brings it together. So in this example, we have this particular asset maintained or managed from IBM Maximo as well as from SAP plant maintenance. So we have data coming in from both sets, but it could be very well your CRM system, D365 or Salesforce or any other, or also like as I mentioned, homegrown. Then the second pillar is obviously the documents or the content that makes it valuable from a business process perspective, either upstream or downstream. So this is how we had created a template for whenever an asset is created or equipment is created in SAP plant maintenance. This is again a templated structure, so you could make it your own. It doesn't have to be this. It will show you all the documents, all the correspondence, images, drawings coming from there. The next thing is the team. What makes this my team who needs access to these documents or some of the contents somewhere in the business process. And the last one is the tasks, right? Like I need to have some maintenance on this equipment, or I need to have a follow-up with the designer or with the testing team for this particular equipment. So that kind of explains the workspace concept coming from here. One more concept I would like to talk about is the business attachments. So business attachments are a document or a folder or an object that is in content server, but it could be linked to your SAP data or to your Maximo data. Now, one or one document could be attached to multiple business objects or multiple data points in SAP. So for example, if you have a material or an equipment or a pump that is the safety manual of that pump might be useful in all other places where this pump is used. So you could use that one document and use business attachment to link it to all different use cases for that pump. So anytime the document is updated or a new version is added or any correction is made, it is available immediately through all of these processes. Now, if you are a user who stays most of the time in either IBM Maximo or in SAP, you don't really need to leave the system and come to OpenText to do any of your work. Vice versa, there is a small navigation item which can take you to the which business application you want to go. So I'm going to go to equipment for now. Hopefully I've not logged off. Okay. So this is showing me the equipment view from a Fiori perspective, the new, if your organization has already started or completed the S4 journey, this is the new look and feel of SAP data. But you could see all the information for that equipment. If you are an SAP user, this is where the integration comes in picture, services for object and then business content window. But more importantly, the metadata updates that Chris was talking about, right? It is real time. So if anytime something is updated or changed in SAP, we could push that easily to OpenText Content Server. Now, most of the I'm gonna just add this one here. I'm gonna say this is operator unit. Just to make sure, somebody didn't do this, and I'm going to hit save. So most of the updates usually happens real time. So it is updated real time, but you could also control on how you want to push the update. So some of the time you might want to not necessarily push it immediately, but do it as a batch job or do it as an asynchronous. Now this is one off where it is only one, but if you're changing a huge number of objects, we would like to do it as a batch update too. And you could control that easily on how you want to do that. So let's go back in here, and I'm gonna go and refresh the screen, and we'll come back to see this description unit, which I changed now, was immediately available on content server side. So that kind of ensures that the users, no matter from where they are accessing the documents or accessing the workspace, kind of stays in the latest version or latest context of the data and not looking at outdated information. Now, last thing I wanted to show you is the same SAP GUI view, which if your organization is on ECC or still using the SAP GUI, you would have the same functionality available and can continue to stay within SAP to perform your day-to-day activities and look at the business workspace from there. So this workspace would show up as the same thing in here. And we could also, from a technical perspective, like if the workspace doesn't exist, there could be like you could manually create it. It could be based on some action like document added, or some action based on, some status changed. Like I don't want to create this equipment workspace if it is, initial phase till it is approved or till it is some particular status is reached. I don't want to create the workspace. So it could be configured in multiple different ways on how your workspace creation should happen. And then from a document perspective, again, the same drag and drop, same features that Chris was mentioning earlier about works from content server as well as from OpenText side, so or from SAP side. So there is no change on there. So a few other things which I wanted to talk about was the business attachment, right? So now you have this business attachment, but now there is another data sheet that came in, or another manual update was made. So let me go ahead and get this new attachment added. So it's very simple. You search for what you're looking for. I'm just going to look for a business workspace, and I'm going to say this one is also related with my work order. So I need to have access to this particular item from my work order as well. And then I'm going to hit attach, and that's how the business attachments are created or updated. Now, what I showed you was a manual update of that particular workspace, but it could be very well automated. like as Chris was mentioning, when your new drawing comes in and the extractor runs or tag extraction is done, based on certain tags, based on certain mapping, we could do this auto attachment or auto linking. It could be done from a drawing by drawing basis, or could be done on a batch basis or a mass basis. So anytime Cad-Capture captures some of this information, which is useful across this multiple equipments or functional locations or work orders or notifications, they could be auto-linked based on that data mapping, which is a huge benefit, because what I'm going to show you from a next perspective is you might have some of this asset information managed in Maximo and some of the work orders managed in SAP. So currently, if you need to do some asset accounting or some sort of reporting, you almost have to do it from two systems, get the data from one system and then get the data from another system, and then kind of do a VLOOKUp or compare and spend a lot of time on there. But then OpenText Extended ECM, by this cross-functional or cross-application workspace, brings in that information and kind of provides you. Now, this is a very simple form of report, which kind of gives me this asset-related information from Maximo as well as from SAP side, and provides me all this information. But this could very well be catered to your asset cost or accounting cost or procurement related activities that could be managed from different systems. And then lastly, I wanted to go over the analytics. Is now you have all the data, you have reports from all the system, but you could also want to present it graphically for your status reports or your monthly reviews or what you have in there. So this is just a sample analytics or sample graphical display from our system, but really it could be based off of any data point. So this one shows, how many assets I have, which doesn't have a association or orphaned assets by asset type. So it shows me all these different details, but you could also see PO by status or the documents by status, and where my documents are, how many of them are controlled, how many are there under revision or are in review. And then, for work orders. So the point I'm trying to make is, any data point that is available within Maximo or within SAP or within your CRM system could be used as a graphical data point from OpenText Extended ECM. And that kind of brings us back to the presentation. I'm not gonna go over a lot of slides here, but I just had one more slide in here. So we kind of discussed all these things that we talked about, business workspace. We talked about that. We talked about, how it is, what is the look and feel of it? How do I navigate between my leading systems to SAP? We talked about how business workspaces, business attachments could be created. But all of this, along with analytics and reports, kind of brings us to a place where, so what is the business value that Extended ECM provides along with the Cad-Capture process, right? So basically, it's an ease of integration with all your other application. Could be standard, could be leading, could be Excel sheet based, could be anything basically. And then you are maintaining this information once, and it's accessible across different systems throughout the process, upstream or downstream. User experience also kind of stays similar, because no matter where the user chooses to work from, they get to see and access the same information. So for right now, if it could be only equipment, but it could be scalable for multiple business objects within the same EAM space, or you could start bringing in your procurement, your decommissioning, your external facing documents and notifications in there. It also provides you a compliant, It also provides you a compliant application, which has, all other records management and other capabilities that comes along with it. So with this, Chris, I think that's it from me. I am going to stop sharing and hand over the control to you.
Okay, thank you, Swati. Okay, so just going back to the slide deck. There we go. So in summary, what we're showing you today is asset navigation for rapid document retrieval and multi-system access. And I think it's that last part, the multi-system access, that really can deliver a huge amount of value. as Swati and Michael showed you, the fact that we can take the information from the drawing and make that available can vastly improve the visibility of the information from the drawings to the lead system and vice versa. So whether it's IBM, Maximo, SAP, another third-party system, certainly the xECM framework and the ability to use the OpenText content suite or content management system, so content suite or Documentum at the back end as the managed repository can be invaluable. And in terms of benefits that we bring, we showed you improved search and retrieval, reduced project delays, reduced downtime, increased safety, improved compliance. And again, the last, but by no means least, leveraging those existing investments. So the unified solution of OpenText and Content Suite, and SAP and Maximo, further enhanced with the ability to offer up this data from the ground up, from the drawings themselves, can really deliver significant value across a number of organizations. Okay, so I'll go back on camera if I can remember how to do it, and I'll open up the floor and see if anybody would like to ask any questions. Or Kim, I don't know if anything has been put through on the chat. We've still got 5 minutes left, so
yeah.
remarkably well, considering I seem to mess around halfway through. Swati will tell me off later for breaking the system.
Yeah, we have been sent a couple through directly. So someone asked, how long does it take to deploy?
Okay, well, I suppose it could be a number of things here, but if we're talking on the asset navigation side of things, generally on a sort of a first site or location, we're generally able to deliver, a fully working system within 3 months. It does depend on a lot of variables, but certainly in terms of capturing, the most important information, making it available, and then leveraging that and populating the business attachments if the xECM framework is involved, then that's certainly more than possible. And that's generally what we work to.
Okay, there's another question. So you also mentioned Hexagon in one of your slides. Can you talk about your experience working with Hexagon solutions?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Well, I think Michael has mentioned Hexagon more than me. I know it's an allied drawing management system where we come across it, but and so we really sit beside it rather than have a great deal of experience with it. But Michael, would you like to answer anything to do with Hexagon?
Yeah, I'm not sure who asked the question, but Hexagon bought a product called Infor EAM, and it could be about that product, or it could be about a portfolio project management. I forget the name of that product. Could we get a clarification? Anyways, so we are currently working on we built the extension from Qellus, or I'm sorry, Qellus built the extension, the extended ECM connectors and configuration environment, etc., into Maximo. And our next, we're working with some partners to do the Hexagon or Infor EAM, and we've been doing a lot of data migration and things from some Infor EAM systems. I personally used to work for Infor Data Stream, so that product I have 25 years experience with. So it'll be the same concept as you see with Maximo, where you have a new tab, and that has direct interface with the business workspace natively within Hexagon EAM. And the other product that I was just talking about that I can't remember. So maybe you could text whether you're talking about Hexagon EAM or some other product. Forget the name of it. Ecosys. Ecosys.
I don't know. Is it Shannon? If you've got any more details, if you put them on the chat or shout them out, or perhaps if it's easier, we could perhaps speak afterwards. We're running out of time.
I think it was Claudia, maybe. So
yes,
I hope I answered that. Okay, I hope I answered that for you, Claudia. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Michael. I put a comment in there. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So we're this close to having that a product that is for sale, I guess.
That's amazing. Thank you all.
Okay, and there's another question: have you worked with ProjectWise? Now that can be used as another data source, and I've seen that used a lot in conjunction with OpenText. It really depends on where the drawings are being generated and managed. So certainly I've come across where the drawings are being initially created within ProjectWise, and then when they get to the as-built stage, they're handed over to the OpenText environment, and that's something that we can work with, and we can either take those drawings as they are ingested into the system from ProjectWise, and then they can be used within the OpenText environment. It is possible, although I don't think, from the top of my head, I don't think we've actually done it, but it would be possible as well, I believe, to also actually go in and pick the drawings out from a HotSpots perspective. If you wanted to, if you were looking at something within the OpenText environment and within the viewer that I showed you, and then there was some related information, you could access that from the drawing itself, and then open the drawing from the ProjectWise environment. So that's one approach that could be used there. I don't know if there's any more questions on that. Vendor drawings are often introduced via ProjectWise. Okay. So again, this is the same question. So yes. So if the drawings are presented into ProjectWise, I guess what I'd need to understand from our perspective is, are they then taken out of ProjectWise, or do they remain in ProjectWise? We can handle the drawings once they're taken out of ProjectWise, and if they've been put into a separate system, such as OpenText, or we can process the drawings and provide a tag database or library of the information that's within the drawings within ProjectWise. So I'm happy to have a long conversation on that if that would be of interest. Certainly, I'm sorry, I can't see the name of the person who's asking that. So let's see if this works. Bill. Okay, Bill. So happy to talk to you about that at more length if that would be of interest to you. I think we're just about out of time. I don't know. Were there any other questions that remained there, Kim?
No more questions.
Okay. Right. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming to the event today. Get this. Appreciate your time and effort, and really appreciate the time of Swati and Michael for joining me on this webinar. I hope it's been of interest to all of you. And again, if you'd like to approach any of us with questions, you can go to Cad-Capture directly, Qellus directly, or you could go to your OpenText AE or your point of contact. We're here to help. We'd relish the chance to talk to you in more detail. But in the meantime, thank you, and have a good day. And with that, I think we'll draw things to a close.